What's going on, Wolfpack Nation? Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Tuffy Talk. And today we always get people on here that have something to do with NC State, and a lot of changes have been going on with NC State athletics and NIL. So we thought, we just had a reset back on January 6th. So we thought today would be a good day just kind of do a level set and get somebody on that's in the know and it can maybe help us answer some questions. We got some fan questions we want to answer. So let me introduce to you Mr. Reid Johnson, who is now the board president of One Pack NIL. Welcome, Reid, to the show. We appreciate you.
Hey, Greg, thanks for having me. Excited to be here to preach the gospel.
That's it. We were talking before we got started. There's just so many questions, and the NIL has been going on for 3 years, but it still feels like it's new, and people just still not understanding how this works. So we just want to give people the opportunity to kind of hear it from the horse's mouth, if you will.
Sure, and rules are continuously changing. So
right, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, not been a static landscape at all.
Yeah. So Reid, just kind of talk to us, give us maybe a minute intro of who you are. And I know I know you were real heavy with Savage Wolves, but now that we've had the merger between Pack of Wolves and Savage, just kind of talk to us like who you are, like how is your affiliation with NC State? Just give us a little quick rundown.
Sure. I attended NC State from the years 2000 to 2004. I ended up transferring. And one of the greatest shames of my life is I did not graduate from NC State.
I didn't either.
I graduated from UNC Charlotte,
That's okay.
But I'm still State through and through. One of the funny things is Tom Lavolsi, everybody knows Tom, started Savage. He let me jump on his coattails and ride and help. And neither one of us actually graduated from NC State. And
that's right.
I think it's funny because there's a big ton of the fan base that's not actually alumni, so to speak, but just very passionate about NC State, and I think we represent that group. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and sold my business about 18 months ago, and saw the need here in NIL. I see the difference NIL can make, and I want State to win an ACC championship in football, basketball, baseball, women's basketball. I just want a championship.
Yes, sir.
And so there was kind of a void here. And so I'm actually retiring at the end of the month for my company, in which I'll be doing NIL full time. And
awesome.
I'm excited about it. We have some great people helping us out behind the scenes. And with the merger, having access to the Blueprint Sports staff to help not just fundraise, but primarily for that back office work that Tom and I continued to need, especially as we tried to scale the collective. So that's kind of the background, how I got here. Everybody in the world probably knows Steve Williams from Inside Pack Sports. Yep. And Steve connected Tom and I, and we just hit it off and had the same goal of winning a championship and trying to do it the right way. And so here we are.
Yeah. So you talk about the merger. Like I said, it just happened back on January 6th, I believe. Just kind of walk me through, why that came about. I know, Savage was doing its thing. One Pack was doing its thing. For those that don't know, Savage Wolves mainly works in the football realm, whereas One Pack, Pack of Wolves, we're primarily doing Olympic sports, but kind of just talk to me through why you guys felt that you guys needed one voice in the room.
Sure. It was kind of twofold. I mean, there was some confusion that was happening on, do I support Savage? Do I support Pack of Wolves? When it came down to it, it's funny, Tom and I joke all the time that Savage was like a social movement. And our goal was to get out there and connect with people who had never connected with NC State before, folks who had never really maybe connected with Wolfpack Club, and kind of start this revolution. And then what Pack of Wolves had was the back office and the 501c3 foundation. And so bringing the two together made complete sense. Now we have the 501c3 foundation, which allows us to work with larger donors.
Businesses, right?
businesses. Because of the 501c3, we had a donor that really stepped up and did a massive donation this year. And it never could have happened if we hadn't joined forces. I think that donor really liked the direction of what Savage was doing, but Savage did not have the 501c3 option. And so I think it really worked out well. I do want to make one thing very clear. In the pecking order of giving for NC State University, Wolfpack Club has to be number one because you have to have scholarships.
Yeah,
Like
and
if you
facilities.
do, absolutely, you have to have scholarships in a facility. 2, NIL. That's still your best way to keep the best talent around and for talent to want to come to NC State. And really, then honestly, kind of third is that facilities. What's great about NC State is they have great facilities to start with.
Mhm.
So to me, the function here is let's get more people involved in NIL, and that high tide will lift all the boats, and everyone will continue to do better. So there's been some misconception out there about Wolfpack Club and NIL, and no, we don't compete. Scholarships
Right.
have to come first.
Yeah, that's when we were talking before we got started, like that's a question I've gotten is like, well, who should I donate to, like the Wolfpack Club or the NIL? And it's, and let's be real, in today's times, funds are tight for a lot of folks. And so, obviously give what you can give. And, I donate to both. And so it's real important that we don't lose focus on either side of the house. With kind of like, when you guys were talking about this merger and everything before it happened, it seems like the reception from the athletic department has been pretty positive. Was that something that you kind of like brought to their attention? Like, how does the athletic department play in some of this NIL stuff? Because I know it's kind of a slippery slope of what they can and can't do.
Yeah, I think it's no secret that the athletic department at every school in the nation wants one collective.
Mm-hmm.
They want one group to communicate and I don't know that monitor is the right term, but it kind of is, right? We talk all the time, daily. Hey, is this okay? Can we do this? Because what's interesting is historically athletics would have had vision over Wolfpack Club, anything when it comes to fundraising. And so here's a complete separate entity. It's not part of the school, not part of athletics.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think really the goal is for us to make athletics feel comfortable with what we're doing so that athletics doesn't have to question things.
Right.
And the goal is it's a two-way street, right? Because when we make athletics feel comfortable with how we're doing things and we're very open, we communicate freely, then it also helps them share ideas with us. Hey, we've seen this at another school and we know that can be done. Like, yeah, I think that makes sense. So I think every school wants one collective. And I think every school wants one collective that they can work with and have open dialogue and build a trust with. And so that's really where we've been focused with athletics.
Yeah, because if you think about dating back to the dawn of day when boosters have always had that negative connotation, kind of being slimy and grimy and doing things dirty. Now that everything is on the up and up and on the table, it's really hard to kind of flip that narrative, if you will. And I think fans still have a negative feeling about NIL. Because whether you like it or not, that's the day and age of what we're in. I personally think players should be paid. It took me a while to come to that realization, but as I've gotten older and my I wouldn't say my wisdom has gotten better, but the way I see things, just kind of talk to why the NIL is so important. And we've had Chris on, we've had Tom on, and I kind of want to get your perspective on this because again, it's about changing that narrative. And you have I hate to use the word old heads, but a lot of the old heads in the fan base are like, well, they shouldn't get money. They get a scholarship and that should be good enough. So kind of tell me the things that, like, I know what Savage Wolves and Pack of Wolves have done for these athletes, and we've gotten some of their stories, but just kind of, I want to keep pounding home that storyline.
Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flightland's Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need. Offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
Sure. It is interesting because there is an age demographic. There's kind of like this line in the sand. And what I'm finding is that people that were converting into being believers in NIL definitely have gray hair.
For sure.
Guys without gray hair seem to right off the rip be a lot more in tune and into it. And I think it's conditioning. I think for years those same boosters have been told, no, you can't, no, you can't, no, you can't, no, we can't, no. And now all of a sudden they're being told yes. And then the guidelines, I don't think were super clear from day one.
I don't think they still are.
I
mean, they're better.
Evolving, right?
Yeah.
And they're changing. But I don't think day one there was like this comprehensive plan. Here we go. This is how we need to do things. So I think some of that confusion, and then quite honestly, the IRS side of it, saying, hey, a collective can't be a 501c3 because of dollars going to athletes. And it's interesting, there seems to be a lot of red tape. And there's a demographic that's like, hey, see, kind of, I told you it's not supposed to work like that, right?
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of our time really trying to educate the guys with gray hair. I mean, I have gray hair.
Oh, I got a lot of it too.
And you've got gray hair, and we still had to get educated too.
Sure.
I like you said, you had to come around to it. I was in the same boat, and the reason I got into this was because there were some players that like literally couldn't afford to buy a tux to go or rent a tux to go to a formal event with their girlfriend, right? They couldn't buy
a suit to the ACC media day or the awards banquet or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounded crazy to me. Like, it was like, wow, like, okay, I can help guys with this. And I have a passion for folks who are doing the right things and going about things the right way, who just need a help, because I got help to get where I was. So
for sure,
that was something I felt like I could kind of pay it forward and pay it back at the same time. So that was the genesis of really the why I got into it, in kind of the same kind of stories that I use with guys today of why NIL. But the other part of it is I guess I get tired of people saying, oh, we don't have money for this, but the TV contracts are huge,
absurd. Yeah.
In as an entrepreneur and running my own businesses, like, it just didn't make sense to me. How is there not money? Do I love the fact that NIL is still in the back of the fans? I don't. Right. There has to be a real solve for this. But like I tell people, in 2 or 3 years, I suspect there's a real solve. And our job right now is to be great stewards of everybody's dollars until there is a final plan in place. Yeah. And that's our role. So
yeah, it's almost like we're a bridge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We are truly a bridge, because one day in the perfect world, this is something that is run by like a Wolfpack club. That's a well-oiled fundraising machine that is part of athletics or has ties to athletics. That would be the dream, right? For any NC State fan, that's what we should be wishing for.
But it only makes sense to go to the Wolfpack club, right? Like,
yes,
it's a one-stop shop.
100%. And I think that's a direction that would be great for some schools to go. I've heard 100 reasons why it won't work, right? Everybody's got kind of a reason, but I think it's time for people to start looking for reasons why it will work, right? And that's the stuff we're pushing every day.
Yeah, and you hear coaches talking about it, right? Between whether it's the portal or the NIL, it's like something has to be figured out. And, this is only year 3.5 of the NIL. And so if you think about it, it's still in its infancy. You have, Nick Saban going on record, having talked to Congress. There just needs to be better oversight, whether it's football as a whole, whether it's, segregated from an NIL from a football perspective, because you don't have a level playing field, right? And the little schools don't have a chance. Even And look, I think NC State has done a great job by all accounts from what I've read out there. You guys at Savage and in I should just stop saying Savage, and One Pack NIL has done a great job of marketing and getting creative in the way they do things and and setting a blueprint moving forward. But Nick Saban's gone on record as saying that he wouldn't be, obviously he's retired now, but before he retired, like having some kind of salary cap, having some sort of one voice in the room to set the level, set everything. Kind of, what are your thoughts on all of that? Like, do you think at NC State, taking all your biasness aside, like, do you think that we have a level playing field to compete against the big boys?
Yes and no. Do I think we have one today? We're getting there. This year's really about professionalizing the collective. And I think through that we can get there. What NC State has that I think is maybe not unique, but it's our strong suit, is we have a passionate and large fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, after the Carolina game, when we smacked that ass, as I would politely say, Dave said, "Hey, I'm looking for 5,000 people to donate $1,000."
Mm-hmm.
You would think with an alumni base as big as ours that we're not looking to do something crazy like that's
Right.
pretty doable.
Mm-hmm.
I still believe that's very doable. We just have to find a way to reach more people. And so,
Right.
like I tell everybody, tell your friends, challenge them to do what Dave said, right? And until we can get more people involved, we're not going to be the big boys.
Sure.
But I think we've proven through this portal cycle that we can compete with anybody.
Right. We could be players.
We can be players. And if you look at NC State football in particular, there is, not that there's not stability in basketball, but there's a stability in football that's different. Same
Mm-hmm.
coach, 12 years,
Right.
8 wins or more in 5 of the last 6 years.
6. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, guys, like, we have a staff that wants to be here. We have a staff that puts guys in the pros. All we need is to put the dollars in place to have the right athletes here that
Mm-hmm.
are going to stay here. The idea that athletes want to come to a college now just to play for a coach, I mean, unless you're playing for Nick Saban or somebody like that, it's kind of a pipe dream.
Right.
The guys I talk to, hey, what's more important, facilities or an NIL check? NIL check every day of the week, right?
Yeah. Just the league. It's just the times that we're in now. I mean,
Yep.
And unfortunately, and I don't mean to sound negative, a lot of these players are playing for the name on the back, not the name on the front, right? They're putting themselves in the best position to make a few dollars while they're in school and get scouted for their next level.
If folks, common guys like you and me, had the opportunity to go get a contract for 4 years, making $60 million a year, would we play for the logo or would we play for that opportunity? Right. I mean, there's a little of both, but the reality is NC State is probably not what's considered a logo school, right? Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan.
Not a blue blood.
Yep. But what we do have is a great staff and a great base that can come together and really get this done.
Yeah.
I did want to say something about
Sure.
About the Pack of Wolves and Savage kind of merger.
Yeah.
We did the NIL football event together. It's kind of a co-branded event. That event went so good, and the guys we worked with were so great to work with. It just kicked any idea that we should be competing in any way out the window.
Right.
It was so obvious after that event we should be working together, and we should be putting our skills and knowledge together.
Well, yeah, I mean, it only makes sense, right? Like, you take the best of both worlds. Like you said that, you and Tom and the rest of the team at Savage does things really well. And then I'm sure, Chris and his team do things really well. And it just makes sense to put all the brains in the room to say, hey, like, we can attack this from a much larger, lens, if you will. Just the next thing I kind of want to talk to is the momentum that we've seen. Like you mentioned it, this cycle. So I guess, was it, it could be a number of things, right? Was it how we, ended the season, or, being 9-3 in the regular season? was it Dave's speech after the Carolina game? Just what do you think has really launched the momentum that we're seeing this recruiting cycle, right? To bring, guys home like, Hollywood and Noah and then Grimes, and I'm going to stop there naming names because there's been so many and I don't want to really forget anybody, but just kind of talk to me like is this something that you envisioned probably 9 months ago?
No, I mean, in fact, when we were talking about merging the collectives, there wasn't the kind of momentum that there is now. After the Carolina game, first, the genesis of this is that 5-game win streak.
Yeah, for sure.
When you win, people get excited. Period.
Absolutely. Everyone will back a winner. It's easy to back a winner. Yeah.
And then when you go out and you kick Carolina's ass in the first half so bad that they don't even want to play. I mean, they looked completely disinterested. So good for them for putting in the effort in the second half. First half, totally disinterested. You want to fire up a fan base, have that happen, right? Have your rival, make them completely disinterested in the game by halftime. And then afterwards, have your coach go out and mention NIL and who people need to talk to. And so that really was kind of like that moment, that win streak, the discussion after the game, and then all of a sudden things just went wild in a great way. You know, we had people reaching out, donating. How can I help? I want to participate. What can I do to participate? So I think it was kind of a culmination of all those things. But that win streak is really what separated. But as far as guys coming home, it was one, every guy you named, Noah, Tamarcus, Hollywood, Grimes. These are all guys we recruited really hard in high school,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, we were in the top 4, the last 3 on most all of those.
Yeah, and I feel like we're bridesmaid on probably all those guys. And I think what they saw was you can win in Raleigh. You can get developed in Raleigh. And there's an NIL collective that is reasonably competitive with what they had at big schools. And so I think when it came down to it, it's kind of a winning recipe going forward. One of the questions that I've heard a lot is, hey, can you do that again next year in the portal? I don't know. I mean, a lot of these guys were from the area, right? And so it was appealing also to come home. But if we keep winning and continue in the top 25, that helps recruit guys on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, I think North Carolina is a great destination. I live in Northern Virginia and spend most of my time in North Carolina at some kind of NC State sporting event. But I mean, you got, the feels of a campus that's kind of in a big city. You got professional sports, good weather. North Carolina checks a lot of boxes for these guys. And so, the first and foremost thing is you have to keep winning, right? You have to capitalize on your streak or on your heater, if you will. And winning does solve everything. But all right, well, we're going to pause there for part 1 of our episode. Part 2, we got some fan questions that we kind of reached out to some of our folks, and they've got some questions for you. And then we'll talk a little bit more like how people can get involved. So Wolfpack Nation, again, if you're not following this channel, go ahead and subscribe and notify the bell. Obviously, go out and reach out to One Pack NIL. I'll get it right because it's such a new thing to say. But we appreciate you, and come back for part 2 real soon.